They were with another person. It was not because you were not good enough. It was not because you were simple to replace. It happened because something inside them was not prepared to face what was genuine, and now they carry a message they can no longer ignore or keep hidden inside. What they want to say is not easy. It is not comfortable. While they were physically present somewhere else, emotionally a part of them never fully left you, and that truth has now become impossible for them to deny any longer. Have you ever felt like a connection never truly ended, even when everything on the surface said it did? Something stayed unfinished and quietly present in the background of your mind all along. That is where they have been living. They were not in the past exactly, but in a space where truth was delayed and not erased completely. Real connection does not disappear. It waits patiently, and it remains. Eventually, it asks to be seen clearly without any doubt. If you want the full truth about why they came back with this urgent message after being with someone else, you can feel that truth right now. They chose what felt safe instead of what felt true for them at that time. They moved toward what was familiar rather than what was quietly calling from deep inside them with real strength. They held on to what was easy to avoid instead of what could have actually changed them in a real and lasting way. In doing this, they convinced themselves that comfort was the same as peace. They did this even though something within them kept questioning that choice. They stayed where things felt predictable. They stayed where emotions did not demand too much, and where they could remain in control without much effort. But deep down, there was always a quiet awareness that something more meaningful had been left behind. They left behind something that required more courage than they were ready to give at that time in their life. Once that understanding began to settle within them, it did not fade away softly. It did not disappear over time at all. It stayed with them in the moments they could not run from or distract themselves from easily. It showed up in quiet evenings. It showed up in the pauses between conversations and in the space where their thoughts became louder than anything else around them. The feeling did not ask for attention, but it refused to be ignored by them. It remained present in a steady and quiet way. It reminded them that something inside had been left unresolved for too long. No matter how much they tried to move forward, this awareness stayed behind their actions. It was quietly shaping how they felt about everything in their days. In the silence between conversations, and in the repetition of days that slowly started to blend into one another, they began to notice how little life was truly asking from them at that point. Everything felt manageable, but also limited, as if growth had been replaced with routine over time. They started to see how much of their real self they had been holding back. They did this just to keep things simple and easy to handle without challenges. They avoided deeper questions. They avoided stronger emotions, and they avoided situations that might challenge who they were deep inside. Over time, this created a sense of distance within themselves. It was a feeling that they were present in their own life, but not fully engaged with it. And that quiet distance slowly became impossible to ignore any longer. What they had with the other person may have appeared stable on the surface, but it did not carry the same depth. It did not carry the same meaning or emotional weight as before. What they shared with you had something different. It had something that reached deeper and stayed longer in their heart. Things that are truly meaningful do not disappear just because someone walks away from them for a while. They remain present in the background of the mind. They wait quietly to be acknowledged without pressure. They do not demand attention, but they do not fade either over the passing days. Over time, these feelings begin to rise again. They do not rise in dramatic ways, but in subtle and persistent reminders that something important had once existed between you. At some point, they stopped pretending to themselves. It did not happen in one sudden realization, and it did not happen through a dramatic moment of clarity. It happened slowly and honestly, in a way that felt both uncomfortable and real at the same time. They admitted that they were never fully alive in the place they chose to stay in during that period. Something important had always been missing, even if they tried not to see it clearly before. They recognized that no matter how much they tried to convince themselves they had moved forward, a part of them was still emotionally unfinished with you. this awareness did not come with ease at all. It came with a quiet honesty that forced them to look at their own decisions without excuses or hiding. You can recognize this if you have ever felt a connection never truly ended, even when they were with someone else. They came to understand that they never truly gave that connection a fair chance in the past. It was not because it lacked meaning or value, but because it required courage from them. It required a level of openness they were not prepared for at that time in their journey. It was the kind of courage that asks a person to show up without protection. It asks them to face the possibility of rejection and to allow themselves to feel deeply without knowing the outcome ahead. It meant risking emotional pain. It meant risking change and risking becoming someone different because of what they felt inside. Instead of stepping into that space, they stepped away from it. They chose safety over growth at that moment, even though a part of them knew what they were leaving behind. Now that awareness carries a message they could not express before. It is not perfect. It is not carefully shaped, and it is not asking for sympathy from anyone. It simply exists as a quiet and steady truth within them that they cannot ignore. They understand now, and they see what you represented in their life with new eyes. They recognize that what they were avoiding was never truly you. They were avoiding the parts of themselves they were not ready to face honestly, and that realization shifts something deep inside them in a lasting manner. It changes how they see their past. It changes their choices and their understanding of what truly mattered most. It is not a loud change, but it is a permanent one that stays with them. Once a person clearly sees their own avoidance, they cannot unsee it no matter what. They cannot return to pretending that nothing happened or that it did not matter at all. Whether they choose to reach out or remain silent, something inside them has already changed in a lasting way. The illusion they were living in has broken apart completely. That collapse brings both discomfort and clarity to their mind. It forces them to sit with the truth of what they avoided. It forces them to accept the emotional weight that comes with that awareness every day. There is no easy way to escape it once it becomes clear in their thoughts. What you need to hold on to is this truth above everything. None of this was ever a reflection of your worth or your value as a person. It was always a reflection of their emotional readiness. It was about their ability to face what they felt at that time. You can know the real reason they could not fully leave you emotionally. You were not replaced by someone better in any way. You simply crossed paths with someone who did not yet have the capacity to meet you where you were standing. And now they are standing in the result of their own choices. They are carrying the weight of everything they avoided, delayed, and left unresolved. Whether they speak about it or not, that is the real impact for them in their life. It is not a dramatic return. It is not an immediate confession, but the truth is slowly settling into their awareness over time. You were real, and real connections leave a mark that cannot be erased by convenience, distraction, or avoidance of any kind. They want you to understand that their choices were never about your value. Their choices were about their own fear and their level of emotional readiness back then. The hesitation, the distance, and the inconsistency all came from fear. It did not come from a lack of understanding of what you meant to them. And now that fear has been faced, it has left them more aware, more honest, and more conscious of the consequences of how they handled something that truly mattered deeply. They are carrying a clarity that feels heavy. It feels undeniable, and it is impossible to ease with excuses or simple explanations any longer. In that clarity, they can now clearly see what they ignored. They see what they delayed, and what can no longer be reversed or changed easily. They see the effect their silence, inconsistency, and avoidance had on someone who truly deserved full presence, honesty, and real effort from them. This awareness does not come with comfort at all. It comes with a steady understanding that stays with them without rushing. It does not rush or fade away quickly in their days. Instead, it sits quietly within them. It reminds them of every moment they chose distance over truth and hesitation over honesty in the past. This is not a request or a plea for anything to return to how it was. It is not asking for reconciliation or another chance at this time. It is simply an admission. It is a quiet form of understanding that only comes after reflection and personal growth on their side. They recognize the courage you showed just by being emotionally open. They recognize you by how you asked for honesty and by how you refused to accept half-effort or unclear attention from them. And in that recognition comes both respect and regret at the same time within them. They look back now and realize that the quiet moments they shared with you were the loudest moments of their emotional life. They try to find that same resonance in their current routine, but everything else sounds muted. The conversations they have now are polite, predictable, and entirely safe, but they lack the spark that used to keep them awake at night thinking about what could be. They realize that by choosing safety, they accidentally built a prison of their own design, and the walls are made of all the things they never had the courage to say to you. Every time they hear a certain phrase or pass a familiar place, the armor they tried so hard to build starts to crack just a little bit more. They are learning that you cannot actually run away from a connection that was meant to change you. You can only delay the realization of how much it truly transformed you. They are sitting with that transformation now, alone with the understanding that they let something priceless slip through their fingers because they were too afraid to hold on tight. They want you to know that the silence between you is not empty. It is full of all the words they were too cowardly to speak when they had the chance. They are processing the fact that you did nothing wrong, that you loved them with a fullness they were simply too small to contain at the time. This understanding does not bring them peace, but it brings them truth, and that truth is the first real thing they have felt in a very long time. They remember how you looked at them with total clarity, seeing right through the defenses they spent years perfecting. That exposure terrified them, and that terror is exactly why they fled into the arms of someone who only saw the surface. It was easier to be loved for a mask than to be known for who they actually were. But now the mask is heavy, and they are tired of wearing it, especially when they remember how light it felt to just be human around you. They are learning that memory is a patient thing. It does not demand to be fed every day, but it knows exactly when to show up to remind you of what you lost. They see your ghost in the quiet corners of their current life, not as a haunting, but as a gentle reminder of the standard of love they once experienced and failed to keep. They are living with the knowledge that they settled for a lesser version of life, and that choice is something they must answer to every single morning. They recognize now that your strength was never a threat to them, even though their insecurity made it feel that way in the past. Your ability to stand firmly in your emotions was a gift they did not know how to receive because they were too busy hiding from their own. Now that they are forced to look at themselves without any distractions, they see the immense value of what you offered, and they are deeply humbled by the memory of your patience. The message they carry is one of deep accountability. They are no longer blaming circumstances, timing, or external pressures for why they walked away. They are looking directly in the mirror and admitting that they were the ones who broke the thread because they were afraid of where it would lead them. This level of honesty is new to them, and it is painful, but it is the only way they can begin to pay respect to the bond they discarded so carelessly. They know they cannot simply walk back into your life and expect the doors to be wide open. They understand that their actions had consequences, and that you have likely grown, changed, and built a beautiful life in the time they spent running. This realization adds a layer of grief to their clarity, but it is a clean grief, one that acknowledges your worth and accepts the reality of the distance they created. They want you to breathe easier, knowing that the confusion you felt back then was entirely justified. You were reacting to their internal division, to the way they were pulling away while a part of them was desperately trying to stay. You were not crazy, you were not imagining the depth, and you were not wrong about what was happening between you. They are finally admitting that you were right all along, and that validation belongs to you completely. As they move forward through their days, this understanding will continue to shape them. It will influence how they love, how they communicate, and how they show up for themselves and others in the future. You changed them, even if they had to leave you to realize it, and that change is a permanent monument to the connection you shared. You were a turning point in their story, the moment they realized that safety is never enough when your soul is hungry for something real. They have respect for your honesty and strength. They also have deep regret for not being brave enough to meet you at that same level when it truly mattered most. That regret is not loud or dramatic in any visible way at all. It is quiet, internal, and always present beneath the surface of their thoughts. It appears in late-night thoughts. It shows up in quiet moments when they cannot distract themselves, and in memories they try but cannot fully push away. It continues to remind them of the chances they let pass, the honesty they avoided, and the connection they did not protect when they had the chance before. This feeling does not shout for attention, but it never completely disappears from their mind. It stays steady and constant. It shapes how they now understand their past and the decisions they made during that time in life. What they want you to understand most clearly is that this is not about missing comfort or simple familiarity alone. It goes much deeper than that in their heart. It is about finally understanding what a real connection feels like. It is about realizing that something genuine cannot simply be replaced or ignored easily. In every decision they made, there was still a part of them that remained aware of you all along. They were aware of the truth they were not expressing out loud at the time. That awareness never left completely. It only grew stronger over time. It slowly turned into a clarity they can no longer deny or avoid in their daily life. They are not asking for forgiveness, and they are not trying to force any decision from you at all. They are simply offering the truth of their realization. This is something they were not able to express before this point. This is their truth presented in a quiet and honest way, without performance or exaggeration of any sort. It comes from someone who finally sees what was in front of them all along. They now carry that understanding with full responsibility. There is no attempt to rewrite the past or make it seem different from what it was. You can share this perspective with anyone who is still waiting for clarity from a person who chose safety over truth. There is only an effort to acknowledge what was real and what it truly meant to them. The message is not about changing what has already happened in the past. It is about fully accepting it without running away. They are no longer running away from the emotions they once avoided for so long. They are no longer dividing their attention or hiding behind silence and distraction like before. They have faced their hesitation, their emotional distance, and their fear of being vulnerable with themselves. Through that process, they have come to realize something important and clear in their mind. The person they hesitated to fully show up for was always you without question, and that truth now carries a strong emotional weight that cannot be ignored any longer by them. That realization has reshaped how they understand connection, honesty, and emotional presence in their life. They are different now in awareness, even if the past cannot be changed at all. Even if they never act on what they feel, the understanding they carry will not disappear from them. It remains because they now see you clearly. They do not see you as an option or as something replaceable. They see you as a meaningful connection they were not ready for at the time. That truth stays with them. It shapes their thoughts and follows them into future experiences where real emotional depth appears again in life. What comes next is no longer guided by confusion or uncertainty for them. It becomes about conscious choice. It is about your choice, your clarity, and your ability to stay grounded in your own truth and self-respect moving forward. Take a moment and sit with this fully. Allow yourself to feel the weight of what has passed and what may still be possible ahead in your journey. Trust your instincts, your inner voice, and the strength you have developed over time through your own experiences. You already know what feels right for you deep inside. You already understand what you deserve. And now, with full awareness of both their growth and your own, the next step can be taken with clarity, calm, confidence, and steady self-respect. On the surface, someone may appear fully committed elsewhere or focused in another direction in life completely. But emotionally and psychologically, a part of them can still remain connected to something they never fully understood or resolved before. This is not about betrayal in a simple way. It is about the deeper and more complex nature of human attachment, fear, and personal growth that develops slowly over time. What makes this situation powerful is the role that fear plays in shaping decisions that people often do not fully understand while making them at the moment. Fear quietly influences choices more than most people are aware of in their lives. Fear of closeness, fear of being vulnerable, fear of losing control, and even fear of facing one's own emotional truth can lead someone to divide their attention. It can cause them to avoid what they truly feel inside. In those moments, they may move toward other connections not because of real love, but because of comfort, distraction, or the need to avoid deeper feelings completely. At the same time, the person they were deeply connected to remains present in their thoughts. This happens even if they do not speak about it openly with others. That presence continues through memories, quiet comparisons, and unspoken thoughts that stay with them. It shapes their emotional world in ways that are not always visible from the outside, but are strongly felt within their heart. Regret becomes a meaningful part of this process. When someone avoids emotional truth or delays a real connection, they eventually begin to feel the result of that avoidance. This realization often arrives quietly during reflection. It comes in moments of stillness or when there are no distractions left to escape from their own thoughts. It is not about simply missing someone on a surface level alone. It is about clearly seeing the choices that were made. It is about seeing the fear that guided those choices and the missed chance to fully value a real emotional connection that existed. That understanding does not come quickly or easily for them. It builds over time, becoming stronger with each moment of honesty they allow. Once it is fully seen, it stays. It shapes how they move forward and how they understand what truly matters in their life going ahead. This can be a very real realization if this message just hits you deep and wakes up old feelings. This kind of regret is powerful because it brings a person face to face with accountability, humility, and real inner growth that lasts. It does not allow easy escape or quick distraction from the truth. Instead, it asks them to look directly at their own choices and the impact those choices created on others. At the same time, growth is never one-sided or limited to one person alone in this journey. While one individual is learning to face fear, accept responsibility, and understand emotional truth more clearly, the other person is also changing in their own way with strength. They are learning to set stronger boundaries to protect their peace. They are learning to value their self-respect more deeply than before, even when it requires distance for a time. This creates a situation where both individuals continue to evolve, often at different speeds, but still moving in similar directions internally over the months.